Hi, I'm Helena and we're here today at Labour's National Policy Forum in Birmingham. On Friday you've been submitting your questions for Ed Miliband on Facebook and Twitter, and today he's here to answer them. How are you, Ed?
Very good to see you. I've really enjoyed being here today.
Our first question is from Jenny in High Wycombe, and she'd like to know what Labour's going to do about the continuing privatisation of the NHS.
Well, we're going to stop it, and it's very, very important that we take action on this. The government introduced their top-down reorganisation of the NHS, which ended up privatising and fragmenting parts of our health service and costing billions of pounds. We're seeing A&E in crisis. We've said a Labour government will repeal the NHS bill because we want to put the right values back at the heart of the NHS. Values of cooperation, care and compassion, not privatisation. So it's a very different direction under a Labour government. And then we want to integrate health and social care, bringing those things together, making the health service work better, particularly for elderly people.
Lots of people have said that Labour got the ball rolling on NHS privatisation. What would you say to them?
I think we were willing to use the private sector to make a difference to the capacity of the NHS. And actually, that's what we did. You know, when we came into government, waiting lists were 18 months. People were on waiting for an operation. By the time we left office, it was 18 weeks, the lowest waiting times ever, the highest patient satisfaction ever, more nurses and doctors in the NHS. So Labour was willing to use the private sector where it could make a difference. What this government is doing is totally different.
Thomas from Haringey would like to know if Labour would renationalise the railways.
We're looking at all the options when it comes to the railways. We have said that East Coast, which is currently in public hands, should stay in public hands. The government is dogmatically going ahead and privatising East Coast, whatever the implications for value for money or standards of service. So we're very open and we're looking at all of the options when it comes to rail, and we've been very clear about East Coast.
Our next question is from Ian in Manchester, and he'd like to know what Labour's position is on a possible retrospective increase in student loan interest rates.
Well, I'm very worried to hear about this secret document that's been circulating in government about, if you like, coming back for more to existing students who've already been through the system, and all part of trying to privatise the student loan book, as far as I can understand it. Look, it's just another sign of what this government is doing to students, both current students and past students, and I think it's unfair.
What would you say to people who think that Labour's policy on £6,000 tuition fees isn't good enough?
Look, what I would say is that we proposed 2 years ago moving to £6,000 tuition fees. We'll obviously look at what we can afford in our manifesto, but on all of these things, it's really important to say we've got to make a difference, and we will make a difference, getting young people back to work, investing in the future of the country, taking on the energy companies that are destroying people's standards of living. But we've also got to make sure that all the promises we make are credible. Because I think if our promises aren't credible, people are going to say, well, you know, it's a nice idea, but is it really going to happen? And, you know, I want to make sure we under-promise and over-deliver, not over-promise and under-deliver.
And lastly, our final question is from Kevin in Ipswich. He'd like to know what we would do, what a Labour government would do to make housing more accessible and therefore more affordable.
We've got to build more homes. We're building fewer homes than we've done since the 1920s in Britain, so that's nearly 100 years. We've got to build more homes. We've said now we will be investing in more housing. We've got to do something else as well. We've got to stop the developers just sitting on land. And we've been talking about that this week. You know, developers are sitting on land with planning permission and not building and waiting for it to accumulate in value. We're saying, actually, we've got to give options to local councils to say, actually, you either use the land or you lose the land.
Thanks for all your questions. Look out for more opportunities to submit your questions to Ed on Facebook and Twitter in the future. Thanks for watching.